This is a follow-up video to the previous episode, which was on the UAE's rapprochement with Syria. If you haven't watched it, you can find it here. There is no dispute that the MENA is a very complicated region, and it is witnessing wars and conflicts since decades. Some of them are internal with international and regional dimensions, and others in the form of direct foreign intervention. That is mainly because the region is rich in natural resources and includes important marine straits and global trade routes. One of the major conflicts of the 21st century is the struggle over Syria, which I've talked about a lot on Syrian analysis. However, there are certain details that I haven't touched enough, which is the strange relationships and alliances between some of the allies and foes in the region. Iran is a strategic ally of Syria and an important partner and ally of Turkey. When the attempted coup d'etat occurred in 2016 in Ankara, Iran sided with Erdogan and even helped him. At the same time, Tehran supports Syria politically, financially, and militarily against the Turkish-backed terrorists, and the Iranian-backed forces fight the Turkish forces and Erdogan's mercenaries in Idlib. On the other hand, Turkey helps Iran in maneuvering the sanctions imposed by the EU and the United States. Russia is also a strategic ally of Syria and an important partner and ally of Turkey. Similarly, when some elements in the Turkish military wanted to oust Erdogan, Moscow rushed to save him. At the same time, the Russian army supplies Syria with air support and military advising on the ground against the Turkish-backed terrorists. And when Erdogan went too far in his imperialistic ambitions in Syria, the Russian military support to Syria enabled the latter to achieve major advances in Idlib. During the last years, the Russian role was crucial in containing the Turkish Daesh in Syria, and Moscow's diplomatic efforts had a major role in drawing clear outlines for the war. These strange relationships, however, didn't stop Turkey of buying the S-400 missile system from Moscow and also the gas deals between the both sides. This is the most complicated one, but I will divide them into three categories. First category, Syria and Iran are in strategic partnership against Turkish and previously Gulf states-backed terrorists. But Iran and Turkey enjoy very good relations, and they won't sacrifice these relations for the sake of Syria. Second category, Syria and Russia are in strategic partnership against Turkish and previously Gulf and Israeli-backed terrorists. But Russia enjoys very good relations with both Turkey and Israel, and Moscow won't sacrifice its relations with neither Tel Aviv nor Ankara, and the Kremlin prefers to manage the differences instead of confrontation. Third category, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other Gulf countries, in addition to Turkey, Israel, and many more, wanted to overthrow the Syrian government. However, their mission has become difficult, not only because Syria and its allies are strong, but because the enemies of Syria were not united. For example, at the beginning of the US regime change war on Syria in 2011, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey were meeting regularly with the US military and diplomatic officials in Turkey and Jordan in order to coordinate their efforts against the Assad of Syria. After a few years, a political rift occurred between Saudi Arabia and Qatar over Syria, Egypt, and Libya, and this led to further polarization in the region. For example, Qatar and Turkey supported the Muslim Brotherhood governments in Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya, whereas Saudi Arabia and the UAE supported the opponents of the Muslim Brotherhood there. Despite the enmity against Assad, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, in exception for Qatar, lost their enthusiasm to overthrow Assad, especially after 2018. And I believe although Saudis still oppose Assad, they don't want to see Turkish expansion in the region, especially in Syria and Libya. Therefore, there is a rare mutual ground between Damascus and Riyadh, which explains a few things. One, the visit of former President of Sudan, Hassan Bashir, in late 2018 to Syria, who was under Saudi influence. Two, the brief talk between the Arab League Secretary General and the Syrian delegation to the UN during the UN General Assembly meeting in September 2019, knowing that the Arab League suspended the membership of Syria in 2011 after diplomatic pressure from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And three, the intelligence and military coordination between Syria, Egypt, and Libya. Recently, for example, Saudi-backed General Haftar sent a senior delegation to Syria to coordinate efforts to fight Erdogan-backed terrorists. And finally, the reopening of the UAE's embassy in Syria and the recent phone call of Mohammed bin Zayed to President Assad on the coronavirus. So what's next? Is there going to be a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Syria? The comprehensive rapprochement is far from reaching, but if I had to choose between restoring ties with Turkey and Qatar or with Saudi Arabia and the UAE, I would keep my strategic partnership with Iran and Russia and choose to open up for the latter because Riyadh's camp is no more supporting terrorism in Syria and they are determined to fight the Muslim Brotherhood terrorism. Additionally, Syria would benefit from the financial cooperation with Saudi Arabia, which will open the markets of most Gulf countries and Jordan with Syria. However, some say the US will never allow these countries to deal with Syria again unless Assad makes big compromises. Days will tell, but what do you think? Are we going to witness a major compromise in the region or the deadlock will prevail for years to come? I've been your host, Georg Almacian of Syriana Analysis. Credit goes to the Patreon community that supports this channel financially on a monthly basis. If you like to support Syriana Analysis as little as $2 per month, please visit patreon.com/SyrianaAnalysis, link in the description below.